All right, welcome to the Journey to Paid Speaking Gigs podcast. I'm your host, Charles Clark, and today I have Jay Baer on. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Charles. Great to be here.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to dive in. When I did the intention for season two, I wanted to make sure it was people who were serious about their craft, who made pivots in their career, with the adjustments from being in person to doing things
Yeah.
virtually. And I just love the platform that you stand for and just your brand. So, before we get started, just let the Thrive Tribe know who is Jay Bear.
Yeah, you bet. I'm a seventh generation entrepreneur. I've written 6 books on marketing and customer experience, founded 5 multi-million-dollar companies. I came to speaking relatively late. I didn't give a paid speech till I was 40 years old, but at the age of 48, they put me in the Hall of Fame. So I went from never getting paid to do it to getting in the Hall of Fame in 8 years, which is
Wow.
a pretty quick turn in the business. So I spend most of my time now working on speaking programs around the world, and then I do a lot of brand ambassador work for software companies as well. In my spare time, I like to be on the water. I have a boat, and I am a very active tequila influencer. So I've got a tequila education
Hey.
TikTok channel, tequila education Instagram account, and so tequila brands send me stuff to taste and review and all that kind of stuff. So I'm from Arizona originally, so that's how I got into the tequila game. And then on stage, as you may
Uh,
know, I only wear plaid suits. I have 14 different plaid suits, and that's my calling card.
Hey, I love it, man. That's a lot of exciting things that are going on in your life, and I think that gives a lot of hope for people too, because a lot of times we think we got to have it all figured out by a certain age, but when you talk about in your late 30s and you're jumping into a new career, what was that like? What was that turning point like for you when you knew like speaking was in my cards?
It wasn't really even on purpose. I
Hmm.
wrote my first book called The Now Revolution, and my co-author Amber Naslund and I did a book tour after that book launched, and we went to 20 cities or so and did events for a couple hundred people, mostly marketing organizations, and they would buy books and we would give a presentation, and people would come up to
Hmm.
me afterwards and say, "Man, that was a really good presentation. You should do more of that." I'm like, should I? Now that's not
Yeah.
100% the path. I mean, even when I was a kid, like when I was in high school, I was always the one who would MC the pep assembly and like host the talent show because I was never scared of the
Uh-huh.
microphone at all. And as a young professional in my 20s, I would occasionally, like twice a year, go do a 15-minute presentation to the Rotary Club on what is the internet or whatever. So it's not like I
Hmm.
never had a microphone, but I never really thought that it could be a business. And people said, "Hey, you should do more of this." And then a fantastic speaker, her name's Kelly McDonald. She's still super active on the circuit. She was doing some consulting work for a company I worked at, and she was really busy as a professional speaker. And she kind of took me under her wing and said, "Hey, yeah, this can be an actual job. Like, you can do this for a living." And she kind of taught me some of the ins and outs of the business, and then it kind of off to the races after that.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's pretty dope. For me, I know I didn't know speaking you can actually get paid for it. I'm like, when
Right.
an organization had asked me like how much you charge, I'm like, what you mean how much you charge? Like I thought this
About a
was just
ham
something that
sandwich. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just a little thank you be nice and but they were like, nah, not how much you charge. Like so what was your first check like, when you said this is my speaker fee?
Yeah. First gig was 1,500. That was the first
Hmm.
first number I put out there. Now it was different because I already had a really successful consulting company and had
Yeah.
been in business, for 18 or well, yeah, like 18 years, right? And I was working with like major brands as a consultant, and had a whole business. So I wasn't, and because I didn't set out to make it my career, I wasn't
Hmm.
like, well, hey, I'll just do whatever to have stage time. It had to make sense for me to not do consulting and instead do speaking. So my
Yeah.
relationship with fees and kind of opportunities and which ones you take were a little different,
Yeah.
because I didn't need to do it. You know what I mean? Like it
Wow.
was, but then pretty quickly I said, hey, I really like this the best of all the things I do. I like speaking the best. And so then I went to my vice president after about a year, of being out there a little bit. And I said, look, here's what I want to do. I want to go from a consultant who does some speaking to a
Mhm.
speaker who owns a consulting firm.
Yeah.
And it's going to take us 5 years to turn that battleship. For people
Yeah.
to not ask for me when they come in for consulting, that they realize there's a whole team here to give me the time to be out there more. And it did. It took 5 years. And we put together a whole plan of exactly how to do it, how to make it about us, not me, and that's et cetera, et cetera. And
Right.
we did it. And then we spent, the next 8 years kind of running that business, right? So I was out
Yeah.
there doing mostly speaking, consulting firm doing consulting. Yeah. So it was just as much work kind of pulling myself out of my other business
Yeah.
as it was to get into the speaking business, if you know what I mean.
And so did you ever see like a kind of a crossing between your speaking engagements and the consulting? Did you try to
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, the reason that I'm a busy speaker is not that I'm a great speaker.
Hmm.
Like I'm pretty good, but there's tons of people who are better than me. Lots of my friends are better than
Yeah.
me. But I had 20 years of like deep, deep, deep experience in the industry as a professional marketing consultant, as a customer experience consultant, as a technology consultant before I ever gave a presentation. And then the whole time I was becoming a busier and busier speaker,
Hmm.
while I still had all of these clients and all the lessons that I was learning every day working for them. So, um, it really helps to know what you're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like especially if you're going to be a content speaker like I am,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a motivational speaker or a leadership speaker. I'm going to bring you ideas of how to make your business better.
Right.
And those ideas are real because I actually develop them and put them into practice for Oracle and Hilton
Hmm.
and the United Nations and Jack in the Box and all these other clients. Like, it's not just something I think is a good idea. Like I've actually done it.
Yeah.
And so having that kind of day-to-day experience in the business, I think not only adds credibility as a speaker, but allows you to road test the
Hmm.
ideas. If you're going to go stand up there in front of, I did an event last week, if you're going to stand up in front of 10,000 people and say, hey, you should change your business and do it this way, you damn well better know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
You gotta have the proof. Show me the stats. Show me the
Yep.
testimony.
Show me the
Yeah,
receipts.
yeah.
Show me the.
All day. No, I think that's golden tribe. Listen, if there's something that you're going to do, have the experience in doing it. If that's something that you want to be known for in a profession for, like get out there, get your feet wet. You know, fail a couple times because I'm pretty sure Jay, it took you some failures and learning curves, experiences to get to the place
Yeah.
that you are now.
Yeah, I mean one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in this industry uh, was from my buddy Scott Stratton, who's a magnificent speaker, much better than I'll ever be. And when I was first getting started, I carried around the curse that many content oriented speakers carry around because I came at it from a consultant's
Mm,
mindset. And my thinking was, all right, I got what? I got 45 minutes? Cool. Let me tell you everything I know in 45 minutes, right? And it was just an absolute fire hose of information. And Scott saw me speak, and he came up to me afterwards and he said, "Hey man, you could actually be pretty good
mm,
at this if you do one thing." I said, "Oh man, what is it?" He's like, "Take half of your speech and throw it
mhm,
away, and then it'll be a good
mm.
speech." And I was like, "Huh,
Yeah.
interesting." And that was really, really good advice. And in fact, it changed my whole
Wow.
career because now, like what most people do who also write books, is they write a book and then they create a speech based on the book,
Hmm.
right? I do it the exact opposite. I write a speech, I go out and give that speech 50 times and get it perfect and get the stories perfect, and then I write a
Hmm.
book. And when you do it that way, it prevents the speech from getting too heavy because you're trying to like fit a whole book into a 45
Right.
minute keynote. So it's been really, really effective, and that's one of the best pieces of advice I
Wow.
ever got.
Wow. I mean, there was so many jewels in that one um, sound bite right there. Uh, but to me, what I'm getting from that, and that's something that I definitely had to work on because, I always feel like I want to offer so much value to people, but sometimes great value is basic information and not overwhelming
Yeah.
people with all that you know. I mean, first of all, if someone knows everything about you, every bit of your content, what more do we have to give?
Right. Right.
So Jay. So what I'm learning from you, man, is really slow it down, just take in the main pieces that you really want to share and work from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just physiology, right? It's
Yeah.
the human mind can only absorb so much information at once,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Mm-hmm.
you can't give them too much at a time. It seems like you're delivering value, but what you're really delivering is confusion, right? And
Overwhelmed.
noise. It's just they can't
Yeah.
contextualize it and they can't write it down. And even now I struggle with it, not so much in terms of how much content's in the program, but just
Mm-hmm.
pace and rate. Like I speak pretty quickly, as you can probably tell.
Yeah. Me
And
too.
I'm always trying to remind myself, like if it sounds slow to me, it's perfect for them, and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I just, and I've been doing this, I've done, I don't know now, 1,200 paid programs, and I still,
Yeah.
still struggle every day on some of those things.
Yeah, that speed is definitely my weakness too. Sometimes I'm just flowing. I'm like, it's not fast enough, and so what you're saying is resonate with me. Yes, slowing down because sometimes people like, yo, I wrote about 7 pages of content, and I'm like, yeah, how you write 7 pages? I only spoke for 30 minutes. So that's pretty cool. Like, so for you, when you talk about, you started later in your career, 30 plus.
Yeah, I was almost 40.
When
Yeah.
did Yeah. So when did you know, like, ah, this is working? This is actually working. I know you got the award for it, but when
Yeah,
was it like, yeah, this
I
is,
was probably, that's a good question. I was probably, um, and again, it wasn't like I was like, hey, I got to pay all my bills, from speaking initially because I had other businesses, so that helped. Right? I can kind of ease into it.
hmm
Um, but it was probably 3 years before I was like, all right, I think that I could kind of make this happen. It was helpful because at the time I did a lot of work in digital marketing and social media and kind of all that jazz, and that was a
yeah,
really really hot topic at that time.
hmm
So a lot of conferences and events and associations and organizations really wanted to hear that story. Like, how can we use social media, et cetera, to connect with our audiences better? And I was on that, I'd been doing it for years. Like, so I really could speak with expertise on that topic. So that
hmm
helped, right? I think it helped me understand that I could make a living out of it because I sort of just luckily kind of hit the topics right. It's sort of like
yeah,
today DEI is so incredibly popular with events and organizations, as it should be. But people who speak on diversity and inclusion, et cetera, that topic is so red hot right now that if you're just starting the career and that's your topic, it's a good time to start, right? And so
yeah, yeah,
I got kind of fortunate in that regard. But it was probably 3 years before I was like, all right, yep, this I can do this, for a while. But look, man, even today, coming out of the pandemic, like there's a lot of great speakers out there. Even there's a lot of great speakers about marketing and customer experience. I
hmm
think you're a fool if you spend one day in this industry thinking that you are owed speeches or owed anything, right? Like
wow, wow, wow,
every
yeah,
single day I wake up and think, is this the last one I'm ever going to give?
yeah,
Because you don't know, man. Somebody out of all the people in the world, somebody's got to stroke a check and say, I want Charles or I want Jay or I want
yeah,
whoever else is listening to the show. And, they're picking you out of everybody. I don't think
right.
you can ever take that for granted, man.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think for our business and what we're doing at Charles Clark International is like, hey, how can we make this better? At every touch point, how can we give them an epic experience? Because like you said, I'm not owed anything. Just because I have a name, there's other people who might be a better fit. Even if they have spoken in lesser years than what I have, and
Yeah.
so we always have to earn that spot. As a transition, my next question for you is there any particular speaker that you have in mind that allowed you to grow your business in a drastic way? What did you see in that person? What were those tangible things that allowed you to increase your brand awareness and the success?
Yeah. I think it's speakers who are not afraid to kind of have uh, something that they're known for. I wrote a book called Talk Triggers, which is all about how to use word of mouth to build your business. And so for me, it's the
Mhm.
plaid suit, right? So I always have a plaid suit, but more importantly, the meeting planner gets to go to a special website. It's dressjbaer.com. You can go there right now, and they get to pick out which suit I wear. So they get to decide
Oh.
that, do they want the blue one, the red one, the purple one, the green one, the other green one, the pink one, and sometimes they want to match the
Yeah.
logo, or they want to match the conference logo, or the backdrop, or whatever. They just like pink, like, and then that when they pick it, we wrote a little program, and so it shows up on my calendar, so I know what to pack. So it's like, okay,
Oh,
this
wow.
event,
Easy for you,
yeah, man,
right?
bring pink suit. I'm like, cool, I can do that. So they love it, right? And the meeting planners tell each other about it. Like
Yeah.
it's nobody else
Mm,
does it. It's kind of my thing. It's
right.
interactive. They love it, and so
Wow.
the reason I wrote that book is that it works for all businesses, not just for speakers, to have a talk trigger, something that
Uh-huh.
creates conversations. But I noticed that there's speakers who kind of have a signature element, a signature move, a signature story. In fact, I used to have a podcast that I
Mhm.
ran called Standing Ovation, where I interviewed speakers about their signature story and how they perfected it over time,
Mhm.
etc. So I look at a speaker like Dan Thurman, a good friend of mine, terrific speaker, former president of the National Speakers Association. There's a point in
Mhm.
every program that he does where he rides a unicycle and juggles stuff. It's awesome, man, because there's not a
Wow.
lot of people out
Yeah.
there who can do that, period. Nobody else
Pull that off. Yeah.
nobody else does it on stage, right? And it's not like he's like, "Yeah, I sometimes do the unicycle and then sometimes I don't." Or I used to do the unicycle, but I got sick of it. I don't do it anymore. No, it's part of his program, right? And I think sometimes, yes, you should keep your material fresh, of course. But don't be
Yeah.
afraid. If you've got a signature bit, or something that people really recognize is your essence, don't run away from it, man. Run towards it. And that's one of the things I learned, not just from Dan, but from a lot of speakers. Like, don't be afraid to come up with something that's yours and keep riding that horse.
Wow. I love that. Finding your stick, Like I can't do what you do, Jay, and put that on my website and let be authentically me. And truly it's like in this speaking industry is not all about copying the cat. Of
Yeah,
course, there's certain timeless things that really are foundational to having a successful business. But at the end of the day, you got to be you.
yeah,
You got to be willing to be brave enough to fully embrace who you are. If you wear a certain outfit, that's cool. If you talk a certain way, that's cool. If you speak a certain language, embrace it.
yeah.
If you go onto the stage and you like to juggle things, that's you. And people are going to see when they see it, it's going to come across as authentic. Authenticity is better than perfection.
Man, so true. And let me tell you something that most people might find surprising.
Hmm.
When meeting planners or speakers bureaus or whomever uh, come in to hire me, they don't say we
Yeah,
want
yeah,
Jay to do this program or this topic. Ever, ever, ever. They say we want Jay to do this because it's about me and what I know and what I do, not
yeah.
exactly the thing I'm going to say. And I think people put too much emphasis on their topic and their exact specific things they're going to say, and not enough emphasis on, well, what's your shtick, man? Like, what is your brand? And if you say just an easy test, if you asked 10 meeting planners who have worked with you to describe you and your presentation in 3 words, could they do it? And how similar would those 3 words be? And if they're not similar, then it's not concentrated enough in their head, right? So you're exactly right about not being afraid to be you. I'll
Yeah.
tell you one of the greatest compliments I ever get, and I hear this a fair bit, and I love it every time. People say to me, "Hey Jay, it's amazing. You're just the exact same on stage as you are off stage."
Hmm.
Yep. And why wouldn't I be? Because if that's not true, then you're either full of shit on stage or you're full of shit off stage. So what's the old saying?
Yeah.
Like don't try to be somebody you're not. That we don't have to remember the lies. Just be you, man.
Yeah, big facts. Yeah, yeah. I ain't gonna lie, that is a hard thing to embrace. When I started out, I always thought I had to fit a certain bill, because I was speaking into corporate spaces. I needed to wear a suit. I needed to have a tie on. But then it just the realization for me was like, man, I don't feel comfortable in this. Like not that I don't feel comfortable in a suit. I do feel comfortable in a
Yeah.
suit, but when I'm on the stage and I'm so dynamic, I'm high energy, like it doesn't work for me right now. Of course, for
Yeah, and the audiences pick up on that. They
exactly,
can tell.
yeah,
They can tell. They
mhm,
say that dogs can smell fear. The audience can smell inauthenticity. They can smell
yeah,
it, right? Like they just know that they can just. It's just micro facial movements and stuff. It's just kind of how you carry yourself and your posture. Like they can tell if you're not totally inhibiting the character of what you're doing up there. So I completely agree. Like don't feel bad
yep,
about you, and it happens. Like I've had that imposter syndrome myself. Like, man, what am I doing here? Like I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. All these speakers are better than me. Like I still feel that way all
mm,
the time,
yeah.
right? And I've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah. So good. I mean, and that's really cool for everyone to know. Like I struggle with it. And I'm pretty sure I will struggle with it again. It's just something when you're out in the forefront, when you're out in the public, there's always something that goes through your mind. But the more you just tap into your authentic self, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. You know, you have six New York Times best-selling books.
Oh,
That's
thank you.
that's
Thanks.
extraordinary, and just want to celebrate that with you right now, man. That's awesome. How do you use? This is my last question for the podcast today. How do you leverage that book to create more success in your speaking business?
I think partially, especially in the corporate world that I typically work in, meeting planners like to know that there's a book behind the speech because it sort of feels like you've done the work,
Hmm.
and that there's a body of expertise underneath the 45 or 60-minute presentation. And then, of course, in corporate events, a lot of times the book itself becomes a useful adjunct to the presentation. So you can give everybody a book, you can do a book signing in the sponsor's booth, those kind of things. So the fact that there is a book
Hmm.
just makes it sometimes a little bit easier for the event itself, right? And that's kind of how I think about it, right? It's like, yeah, the presentation is the presentation, but if we have the book, then we can do some things before and after the onstage presentation.
Yeah.
Because I think of the speech isn't just the speech, right? The speech starts the second I land in the city, right? The speech starts when the wheels touch the runway, because that's when I start contacting a meeting planner, and then you show up on site, and who can you meet with there, and can you do a special meet and greet with somebody? Like
Hmm.
people think that they're getting paid to do 45 minutes with a microphone. No, man, you're getting paid to make
Yeah.
that event awesome, and so you got to think about your role. And I think partially because I do a lot of MC work and a lot of event hosting work, and so I'm even more driven by this mentality, which is it's my responsibility to make sure this event is fantastic. Even if there's 7 other speakers, I still feel
Mm.
like it's my responsibility, right? So when you have a book or something else that maybe it's a workbook or some other thing that you have, it just allows the meeting planner and yourself to build other
Hmm.
interaction elements inside the event itself. That's one of the reasons why a lot of speakers, even though it might even be easier to just do a Kindle version or just do an audiobook, they still often have the physical book, just because like you can't do a book signing in the trade show booth with a Kindle only copy, right? It just
Yeah.
doesn't. I mean, it doesn't work, right? So,
Right. Give you the
yeah,
NFT version of
yeah,
it.
exactly, right. I mean, that's it. Be like, yeah, let's just do NFTs. Like, cool. How am we gonna do the book signing? Well, we can't really do that. I'm like, well, then I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Hey Jay, man, I really enjoyed our episode today. So much I wanted to talk about, but hopefully the tribe got so much value out of this
Uh,
to really help grow their speaking business. So before we go, where can the tribe find you?
Two places, Charles. One, jbaer.com is my main site, but I have a newsletter, comes out twice a month. I think it's pretty dope. It's pretty funny. There's always a marketing or customer experience lesson, usually drawn from my own very colorful life. There's a book review every time. There's a podcast review, usually a tequila review, a bunch of other fun stuff. If you go to thebearfacts.com, sign up. You'll love it.
All right, let's get it. All right, stick around. We're getting ready to go behind the scenes.